So, hello, my name is Mallon, as most of you know, and I'm covering art and games and what I consider art, or games, why games should be considered art, and also why games may not be considered art by some people. So we have to first ask ourselves, like, what exactly is art? What everyone kind of considers art is different. For me, it's provoking an emotional response from the person playing the game or viewing the art. It's kind of inspiration for the people playing the game or viewing the art. It's creative freedom, freedom of expression, and also kind of a window into the artist's mind when they're creating the piece of art. But art really can't be defined by one person's definition of the word, because it's what we all kind of make of it ourselves. It's our own opinion towards it. And so, in saying that, we have different examples of what people may consider art here. And we have from Liam's previous example in his lectures of the urinal case, where I might not consider that art, but many other people might. Then we have Banksy as well, where his first kind of creations were considered more so vandalism than street art. But as time's gone on, it's been slowly accepted, and it's more so considered as proper groundbreaking kind of street art, and sends a very powerful message depending who's viewing it. And then we have kind of what games have inspired as time's gone on to create these kind of fan art, as you see here from Bioshock and Legend of Zelda. So what makes a game art? And for me, it's a collective of different kind of art forms. So we have like the narrative, the music, the visuals, how people interact and their different experiences as they play through games. It's the ability to kind of provoke the emotional responses from the players. So like the fear, anger, happiness, sadness, and more often than not frustration as we play through. So if you look at the narrative, if we play through, it has many different ways of kind of provoking emotional responses. It can make you feel anger towards the game, it can make you feel kind of happiness because you're more kind of attached to the characters that you play through. If you look at any of the Telltale games, you always have a choice when you're playing through, and that leads to different kind of outcomes in the game, which kind of makes you kind of think more about your choices as you play through. If you look at music, if you look at like the Mass Effect soundtrack or Skyrim, you play through those and you listen to that music, and it can rally you up for a fight, or it can kind of leave you kind of transcendent and mellowed out. And the visuals, of course, a picture can speak 1,000 words. And visual can leave you in awe when you play through the game, which adds towards kind of the art of the game. And the different experiences, like looking at painting or sculpture, everyone has their own experience or their own kind of opinion towards it. Just like in the game, when you play through, it's a different experience for everyone, different outcomes. But not everyone agrees that art or games can be art. If you look at Robert Ebert, he originally stated that games could never be art, but has since then retracted that statement because he said that never is a very long time. He continues on the article to say that our generation of gamers and developers may not see it become art, but it will eventually become art. Even in the gaming community, the creators, some of them, like the creator from Metal Gear Solid, has said that he wouldn't consider it art, but he would go on to consider it kind of an artistic style or game form or art form, but it's more of a service towards the player and the consumers. So why would we not consider games to be art? A lot of kind of art critics will be saying that it's not a traditional form of art, it's not painting, it's not sculpture, it's not something physical, you can't reach out and grab it and kind of touch it. So it's a virtual world, like it's a virtual reality that we prefer to view than actually get jumping into it. Of course, it's mass produced. There's lots of arguments against that it is mass produced, but lots of art, there's copies of it, the same way there's copies of a game. But of course, there's no one masterpiece. So like we have copies of the likes of the Mona Lisa, but there's only one masterpiece there. Of course, we consider the code of the game on the original laptop that was created on our PC to be that one masterpiece. Or if you want to be pedantic about it, the very first copy created of that game could be the one masterpiece. But in conclusion, games are going to be accepted as art because, like many things like Bansky and street art, over time it's taken a long time for people to accept it in the community of art and to believe that it is truly what it is, which is art. If we look at the Art Ludique Museum, it's a perfect example of how it's slowly being accepted because they're doing exhibitions on art, games, and how they are art. And there's a few examples on the bottom of the screen there of kind of some of their paintings and the exhibitions shown. But even if we say games aren't art, we can't say that games don't inspire art. Because if we look at music, film, cosplay, there's thousands of people every year that dress up as their favourite characters and they're inspired to do their own version of the character. It also inspires young developers like ourselves here to go on and create our own games. It inspires fan art, it inspires other games. If we look at Flappy Bird, there's hundreds of different ones on the Android market and on the iOS market of different parodies of the game. So if anyone has any questions or any suggestions as to different angles I could take, feel free to go ahead.
This debate always seems to get hung up on there's not one masterpiece, But if you look at Banksy's becoming a hugely successful artist, and he works from stencils, and which can be, if he produces it, I can then reproduce it again.
On that same point, like even during the Renaissance, you had famous artists who worked in engravings. They made prints, printing plates which produced prints, and that was their art.
But I love your point about, well, the art goes one step backwards, and it's the artistic code. That's a fine point. It's a fine point. Is this multimodal art that we're talking about? Is it another art form?
I don't know, if we look at film, you can consider multimodal art if you want then, because it has music, it has acting, it has different kind of forms of art inside of one thing, which games is as well. So I don't see why you could just consider it as just interactive art or its own form of art, I suppose, if you want to go that way.
Other question?
Do you think the question art games art matters at all? Like it seems like it's just an issue of games trying to gain acceptance by comparing themselves to current media, but is it really a necessary comparison?
Yes and no, because I don't know. I think it's the fact that lots of people believe that it's its own art form, and that's why a greater kind of mass of people like gamers, well, the majority of gamers kind of feel like it should be considered art. That's why the question should carry on. But at the same time, games in a way are a bit beyond art. They're a collective of different art forms. So maybe they shouldn't be considered art. They should be considered its own thing outside it.
Do you consider every game to be art, or is there like bad games?
Depends. I do for the most part consider most games to be art because, let's say if we look at the Pong or something like that, it's retro, it's old, it kind of it's historical in games, so in a way that is kind of art as well because it's historical and it's inspired other people to create games. So yes, I would consider dark games art, if not all.
You've made games like in this course. Do you consider it an artistic process?
Yeah, I would, because we kind of have to go about it in a creative way to think of our own ideas, and it's what we portray our game to be, and we kind of paint it on the canvas that is our screen. That's all right.
Excellent.
Do you consider the actual like software engineers to be artists as well as just the game designers?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question to go first, I suppose. I would, yeah, because in a way, the level designers and all that sort of way, they kind of bring up the ideas on what things should appear at the process, and the kind of software developers would be the actual kind of artists themselves that create the product at the end that we see, our piece of art.
Collaborative process. Yeah. Any other questions? Excellent. Enjoyed it.